Pray a drop of golden sun.
However, Courtney's
Me,
relationships are
a
very
name
important to
I
her
call
character. Courtney
myself.
initially likes Duncan because he's a
Ray,
taste of the life she's never
a
experienced.
drop
He's
of golden
dangerous. But like
sun.
most that fall down this path, she wants to keep him around without compromising herself. It's the I can fix him fallacy. We're covering a lot of topics in this video. No one's gonna be happy about this. Everyone's gonna be mad. And it's not because you can't fix him, it's just ignorant to think that he wants or needs to be changed. Yeah, I'm talking to you watching this.
Are these different? Oh, they are different colors.
Courtney prefers the company of men. And what we learn about Courtney's home life and school life is that she had a debate partner that she trashed because she thought she didn't need, and she was in a band that failed because they all wanted to be lead singer. She has a friendship with Bridget for a while, but that ultimately fizzles out. In World Tour, she finally decides to open herself up to her first real female friend.
Oh,
Horribly.
these are like the markers on
Multiple times
TikTok that keep
over.
on
So when Duncan
advertising.
does what she says, or Alejandro showers her with compliments, or Scott becomes her willing servant, it pleases her. But after getting booted off the show in an unfair way, she becomes
I
obsessed
like this a lot
with
more now.
fairness and plays the game in a much more cutthroat manner. So much so that she trashes everyone that tries to get close to her, all in lieu of her strategy. She ends the show with no friends, no meaningful relationships, is shown as hard to work with on one of the most popular shows in canon, and she has a very, very, very public breakup. She even gets out-lawyered by Duncan during their custody battle, and that's her thing. And in Drama Island and Action, she gets to show how athletic she is. But over time, she loses that. She begins to become uncoordinated and just worse at the game. She even notably in World Tour claims she has a strong stomach and proves that by eating all the disgusting food in the China Challenge and not even cringing a little bit. And then she can't even eat some dang poop ice cream at All Stars. This is a weird show. I should have known that when all the characters died in the sun. But with saying that, on top of everything she's gone through, she floats into the sun. And just in case you don't believe or want to believe that the balloons in fact killed them, she would still be on the board. That's why I explained them in detail. They're all severely broken people, except for Joe. Aside from dying, Joe is fine. Now the board's starting to even out. We put Lightning and Dakota to the side, so as of right now, the only Revenge of the Island character we haven't talked about is Mike. So let's talk about Mike. I've been holding this character off for a long time because it's confusing, because he has what they call in the show multiple personality disorder, and then he hits a big red button and then he doesn't anymore. And then there's an evil version of him. I feel like the general consensus of this character is it's a good idea with bad execution, or that it's offensive, which is fair. Most of the stuff they said about DID is wrong, but in their defense, no show's got it right. I was super into it because in the scene in Revenge of the Island when Mike finally stands up to his other personalities, we see a shadowy, creepy Mike for like a frame. And I remember seeing that and going frame by frame trying to find it and watching all these theory videos about what this evil, shadowy Mike could be. I also watched a lot of AMVs of that playing with the animal I have become. It's a good time to be on the internet, not like now. It used to be a proper country. I also did the same thing when Slender Man appeared in the show. That's real. I didn't have
Oh,
that actually
damn.
happened. I don't have a place
I didn't
for it
know
on this
Slenderman
board, but just
exists
know
in the
that
canon
Slender
of
Man is a creature
Total
that
Drama.
exists in the Total Drama universe along with Bigfoot, aliens, and
I
mutants.
guess,
Also,
yeah, it
the
makes
reason
sense
the
now,
borders are
because
different is because when
everything
I'm
else
filming
exists in that
this,
universe.
the air is on fire, full of smoke. It's been a while. I think I've earned it. I think it's finally time. I think we're finally back. Would be a Total Drama video without it. The summer of BH Ultra continues. I want to put this here, but not in a way where it like looks like a brand. So I'll face it the other way. No, I'll put it somewhere else. I didn't think this through. Total Drama, this series, is portrayed like an in-universe reality TV show. So all the things we see are being filmed by real cameras in their world, except for when we need to go inside a character's head. Whether
I
that's a
have
dream
the
or a
one
hallucination
head
or a
canon
man physically
that
fighting
everything
off
after
multiple
like
personalities. This might be a leap and a
the
stretch
third
for
season
speculation.
is fake.
I'm going to
That's
assume
my head canon.
that the footage
Even
we see
maybe even the second
inside
season.
Mike's mind are not meant to
And
be
I do
there.
like
They
the
are
head canon that
a visual
Heather,
aid to help explain
when
what's
she
going
became
on
like the villain
inside
of the
his head.
series, that the
However,
producers
there's a
really
point
like
where
kept
little
her
puppy
in.
Mike yells out to Izzy through Mal's
Thank
eyes, and
you.
Izzy says, "Who's Mal?" And that's the only way she could have possibly known about Mal. Except for the fact that Mal spoke in the confessionals already by this point. Anyone who watched the show would have known that. In Total Drama Action, the contestants watch the terrible things Lashana said about them in a behind-the-scenes clip on the Total Drama website, which leads me to believe that this show is recorded at least a couple episodes before they air. Near the tail end of World Tour, there's a guy who works in a fireworks stand in the middle of nowhere. We don't have time to unpack that. And when Sierra speaks to him, we learn that he's a huge Total Drama fan, or at least watches the show regularly. He knows about the people on the show. But he doesn't know that Cody and Heather are competing against each other. Even if Izzy didn't watch the show on her own and it doesn't air episodes ahead of time, we know that Izzy would have access to all the footage, as the powers that be, the producers, like adding her to stuff to stir the pot. She purposefully causes drama, even in Revenge of the Island. This is just a very roundabout way for me to say that the little scenes and clips we see that take place inside Mike's head didn't actually happen. They are just what Mike thinks and feels at the time. That leads us to the big important question. Is this red button real? In a literal sense, no. I don't think there's an actual big red button inside his head. But I do think it's meant to convey something real. Regardless of how it works, the mechanics of the button, even if it is real or isn't real, we know that it does work. Mike no longer has his multiple personalities, and it's all because of his experiences and growth on Total Drama. Happy ending, right? It's either the button is real and it did physically what it said, or it's metaphorical but it still mentally did what it said. Regardless, what they say when they hit the button is that it's going to reset his brain. I don't know what the implications of doing that can be, but they're not good. Most people who actually have DID don't view it as a curse or a death sentence. It's actually very nice because they have a built-in support system. That's what they're there for support, that most people don't have. Also, it's worth noting that DID is most often caused by a traumatic event, mostly during childhood development, which Mike never talks about, even to the girl who he trusts more than anything. But in his defense, the cameras are always on him, so I wouldn't say that either, because I, being a fan of the show, I'm like, oh, why can't we hear about all the trauma in his past life? Of course he wouldn't want to say anything. Freaks like me are out there. Andrew, he's not real, right? But maybe Mike doesn't even know what his trauma was and built up these multiple personalities as a defense mechanism so he doesn't have to. And now that's gone, so he's left on his own. The second he steps off that island and makes his way home, I feel like he's gonna have an awful time. Mike developed a personality that was evil and mean. So mean and evil and bossy that he was put into juvie and people feared him there. Again, I don't want anyone to take this super literally or at face value because I am not an expert. I am no mental health expert. If you want actual information about this stuff, please seek out a professional. Do not go to me for advice with this stuff because I just know what I've heard and what I've researched, and maybe the articles aren't to be believed. But in this show, to develop a personality that strong and forward-thinking and powerful, something really terrible must have happened. But if you don't believe any of that and you think Mal is just an evil guy and the personalities just work like cartoon characters, then I have something for that too. And that's completely fair and completely valid. Again, for some reason in these Total Drama videos, I keep talking about legitimate mental health disorders, and I'm not an expert. I have like one or two of them, and there's thousands. But I know, and you should too, that people with DID are not monsters. But if we are to believe the logic of the show, if we're going full fucking cartoon, and we are to believe that Mal is dangerous and evil, the good thing about having all these personalities separate is that when Mike is Mike, he can still be himself. Other personalities may take over for the time being, but when Mike is in charge, nothing changes. Except...
Check it out! I have all the skills my personalities had!
Sorry. All his personalities? So he's got Chester's rage, Manitoba's sexism, Vito's douchebaggery.
Don't think of it. If you get rid of us for good, we'll all still be a part of you in a while.
Also, Mal disappeared, faded away, just like all the other personalities. He didn't die any more or less than they did. So somewhere in this new and improved Mike that has all the abilities of his personalities, there are little sprinkles of Mal. And if Mal is truly evil, Some of those tendencies now exist in Mike. And none of this would have happened if he never joined Total Drama. To psychological you go. If I cover all the newer cast members really quick, then I can move on to the beloved cast members and just the ones I've been thinking about and watching since I was a kid. Rodney is not an unintelligent person. He just gets very flustered by pretty women. He's like Scott, except not a little bastard man. Rodney is not a dumb hick, but he was portrayed like one on one of the most popular shows in that universe, all because you got distracted by pretty ladies. Trust me, everyone believing you're dumb weighs on your psyche a lot. Go into psychological. I just put him under here, but I would love to see Rodney interact with Gwen. And a goth girl and a country boy truly find love. Ella. This one's just sad. It's strange because I've only watched Pocketail Island twice, but I had two very differing opinions two separate times I watched it. At the time, when I first saw it, I didn't like it because it seemed like the worst Total Drama could get. And I liked it more this time around because I learned that no, it could always get worse. I didn't like the cartoony characters that were barely even characters. Not like the beloved character Harold we've been watching since the beginning. You know Harold's final line was in the finale of World Tour in 2010? That makes me sick. But upon this year's rewatch, I watched every season. And not only that, but I watched them before this video, watched them as if I had never seen them before. I realized that all the characters started out like that. They just needed more time to develop. And Ella did develop. She started off as a generic princess archetype. Then as the series went on, she got injured, betrayed, heartbroken, and then eliminated unfairly. And she's the only one on that damn island that I cared about, and it made me legit sad. Ella suffered on Pocketail Island, but she still keeps her positive demeanor. She even gets to leave on her own terms as she's lightly lowered into the canon, but I'm still really sad for her. Also, she technically got injured.
Survived it just fine, with only minor damage to the base of my spine.
She may never recover. Physical damage. You can tell whose kids are the parents' favorites by how they treat them. Beardo can die tragically, but if anything happens to Ella, I will... Also, when Total Drama first came out, it was not popular among the internet community, partially because a lot of people just believed it was a Drawn Together ripoff. And I never really watched Drawn Together, but I have seen clips, and not being the allegations with that character. Topher. I'm going in elimination order. I'll get more into it with another surprise character later, but Topher's a really interesting case. The purpose of this video is to track how Total Drama ruined all the contestants that were on it. But in this case, Topher being ruined by the show actually has nothing to do with him being on the show. Ever since the show started, Topher has become obsessed, but not with becoming rich or famous or winning, but with becoming the host. Aside from the first couple seasons, Total Drama doesn't really have a set timeline, but we can assume that the teens on Pocketail Island watched the first season when they were younger. Even if the same amount of time that passed in real life passed during the show, and they're 16 on the show, they still would have been like 11 or 12 when they watched it. Clearly, something about watching Total Drama from a young age imprinted on Topher that the host, Chris McLean, is someone to be admired and looked up to. Topher's only goal is to grow up and be the next Total Drama host. And we know that this is the final Total Drama season in the original canon, but we still never see him after this. His life and future prospects have been ruined by the show, even before he stepped foot on the island. How sad. It's very funny, though, that I'm talking about the effects of watching Total Drama from a young age, and... I mean, which leads us into... Wait a minute, Andrew, did you just say original canon? Priya. And you guys thought I wasn't gonna talk about it, huh? I've been writing this video for a long time. I mean, I said earlier that I've been planning it since last July. While wrapping up this video, I got a notification from the Total Drama YouTube channel, which turns out is not official and not affiliated with the brand in any way. Fresh TV just let these guys post their episodes on YouTube. They posted a community post that said, yeah, the new season of Total Drama comes out in Italy in like a couple weeks. What? And I was determined to not be spoiled this time. Every single season of Total Drama has been spoiled for me. To be fair, some of it is my fault. I watched Island in Action episodes that were just ripped and put on YouTube before they aired on Cartoon Network. Hey, Ultraers, editor Andrew here. I don't know where else to put this, and it happened while I was editing this, so I just decided to put it right after I talk about the show airing on Cartoon Network. I mentioned in previous videos that on the side I'm working on archiving as much footage of this era of Cartoon Network I could find from 2008 to early 2010. And I've mostly been using YouTube rips or stuff I could stumble across on other secondary websites. But because of this, a lot of people have reached out to me and actually sent me rips that I have not seen before, full television rips. And while I was working on this video and after I announced it, a benevolent fan reached out to me and sent me a collection of every new episode of Total Drama Island as they aired on Cartoon Network, like the actual television rips from each of those days. And for those of you who know or watch a lot of my videos, you know they aired on Har Har Thursdays, and there was an event called Stars Days, which I talk about a lot. And initially, when I went to it, I thought like, okay, this is just going to be the episode where Lindsay gets voted off, but I can see it in 4x3, and it's going to have that TV grain to it and the logo in the bottom. This is going to be really cool. But then I loaded up the file and realized that the rip actually starts with the commercial break of Thumb Wars, which shows the puppet Yoda, which I wasn't even certain aired on television, saying touch your tongue to mine, which I also wasn't sure aired on television. So now both of those things have been proven because of this rip, because of this fan. And also the cool thing is between Har Har Thursday's commercial breaks, and because Total Drama is a 22-minute show, it had a commercial break in the middle. It would use clips from those episodes and use sound effects, but during
Thank you.
Stars Days, they use Star Wars sound effects.
Really are mean. And all that bad stuff people say about you is true.
So I don't know what I'm going to do with all the in-betweens. I obviously can't upload the entire rips because there's television copyrighted material in it. But maybe I'll get the in-between Horror Thursdays little sound effect bits that I've been looking for a really long time. I'll upload them on the bonus channel, maybe, if that's what people want. I don't know. I guess you guys decide what you want me to do with these. I was given these, but not under, like, secrecy. Like, nobody told me, like, oh, but make sure nobody knows you have this. Like, it's just television rips. Like, whatever you guys want me to do with them, within reason. Just let me know. And I didn't want to get spoiled for World Tour, but I did want to listen to all the songs because I love cartoon musical numbers. I'm sure you guys knew that. For whatever reason, it never occurred to me as a kid that the songs would then give away the elimination order because they wouldn't have the previous person in the next song. Which led to a funny situation where Cody isn't present in the Wake Up song. So between the previous song and that, Blame Courtney and Cody all disappear. I thought I missed multiple songs. Anyway, so for days following April 10th, everyone on the internet was scrambling to find and watch these episodes. Do you guys have a link? Where are you getting these clips from? Has anybody seen the show? Do you guys see the weird fart episode? That was weird, right? Hey, Ultraers, it's editor Andrew again. Back at it again. You can tell how defeated I am because I couldn't find any footage of this new season because obviously I couldn't download it because it's just the actual show and it's not shown anywhere like the original Total Drama episodes where they're all just uploaded on YouTube. So I had to look for specific clips by searching them up. So for that that one joke, that throwaway joke where I talked about the farting episode, I had to look up basically that exact thing, and the best footage I could find is in a video called Total Drama Island 2023 Girls Fart Compilation. So I'm very proud of this community. You guys, I need to go cry. I'm writing this video way ahead of time. So this just happened to me. It's still possible that even right now when this video comes out, that a majority of you haven't seen the new season. And this video is about how all of these characters end off. So if you haven't seen the new season, timestamp. Spoilers start now. Okay, we're good. Everyone that wanted to leave has left. These characters are not done. We will return to this board. If we put these guys on the board, the board is going to change because they are all confirmed to return in a potential season 2. Because it took 2 years after the season was initially announced for it to drop, it shadow dropped on an Italian TV channel. The Discovery and Warner Media merger has done irreparable damage. I've talked about it before. I probably will talk about it again. But it may not even matter because this season is very different. We see a couple cameos like a mask of Owen, a zombie that looks like Sean. I think we even see the daters on an airplane, but these are all in the first episode. But after that, we don't see anything else specific. We know that these characters have seen previous seasons of Total Drama, but how? Because at the end of All Stars, the island sinks to the bottom of the ocean, and now it's just back in the new season, and nobody really acknowledges it. But don't get me started on the host. Chef doesn't act like he does in previous seasons. He acts and dresses more like someone who runs a daycare. Right? And as most people have pointed out, Chris McLean sounds completely different.
I'm your host, Chris McLean, and this
Voice is horrible.
Drama Island.
definitely not the voice actor's fault. He does a tremendous job and has the insurmountable task of taking over the role of a beloved voice. However, it is different, which leads me to believe that Total Drama Island 2023 takes place in a separate universe. I tried to split them in half, but all I got was ZMK, and I forget which one it is, the gay one. A different timeline, maybe, but different continuity for sure. A timeline where they never dumped a ton of toxic waste on the island and it never fell into disarray and sunk to the bottom of the ocean. That island was fracked until it sank. It's unclear if this means that only the original island season is canon, or if none of it's canon. I mean, Owen exists, maybe. And if they call this Total Drama Island, it makes more sense for it just to be original Total Drama Island and new Total Drama Island in this continuity. Because with like Big Brother, they don't call it Big Brother and then the second season's Biggest Brother. It's just Big Brother Season 1 and Big Brother Season 2. But real quick, I'm going to talk about how some of these characters were ruined, but it's a completely different continuity from this board, and they will come back, so the board will be outdated anyway. So they're not going on the board. Nichelle has outed herself to her mindless fans and potentially ruined her career. Julia also ruined her career and completely killed her influencer character to all of her fans publicly. She can never go back. Damien, like Scott, started out confident, but then being on the island for long enough was resorted to a sniveling, disastrous, scared mess. So much so that he would rather leave the island than compete for the money. Emma and Chase... I swear to God, I picked up the Emma and Chase ones. Okay, yeah, so Emma and Chase both got out of toxic relationships with each other before the show started, but then both being on the show, they met back up and connected again, linked back up, and they are both worse off for it. This isn't like a permanent injury, but Ripper consumed a tapeworm. Those are not easy to get out. Julia 812, that's two people that ate a parasite that's famous for starving people. That's okay because the physical...
Why would you show footage of that?
My favorite characters.
That's literally one of my worst nightmares.
That stuff sticks with you.
It looks so gross.
I think Scary Girl is a demon. Also, she has a name, but they just call her Scary Girl. Which leads us back to Priya, the girl whose life has been dominated by total drama. From the moment she was born, her parents forced this life upon her. She never had a chance to do anything else. The show kind of portrays Millie as in the wrong for feeling bad for her that she never got a chance at a normal life. But she's right. This is wrong. Like Topher, it wasn't being on the show that ruined her life. It was the show's existence in general. Priya never got a chance at a normal life. She did win, but money only lasts so long, and now that we know there's going to be a second season, I'm sure she will lose it in between. She never learned any proper life skills, and I didn't either, but, you know, I figured it out. All she knows is total drama, and when the show inevitably ends again, she will be nothing. Let's see if she even keeps that money on the next season of Total Drama. I just want to say this. The two choices are either the next season is Total Drama, something, like a completely different thing, but the cooler thing to do would be, they already did Total Drama Island 2. I mean, they did Total Drama Island a lot. They keep going back to that island. It's like the Green Hill Zone of Total Drama. But I think it would be cool if they did Total Drama Action again, but with these characters. It's retreading ground, but I think it would be fun. Hey, everyone that just skipped the spoiler section. Max and Scarlet are gonna go to jail. Like, everyone believes that Scarlet was always evil and that she went to the island while plotting her plan. Like, she was gonna do that the whole time. But I believe that being on the island, stuck that long with Max, pushed her to the edge. She committed an act of terror, and whether Max actually had anything to do with it or not, he is considered an accomplice. These two are now enemies of the country. They're definitely worse off, but I don't know if I would... I mean, it causes mental distress, I suppose. I pinned Scarlet and Max with the same pin, so they're stuck together, because I like irony. Even funnier, even Katie and Sadie have their own pins. We only have so many characters left, so we might as well wrap up the Pocketail boys and girlies. I really hate to admit defeat like this, ignore the okay corner, but Sugar? Completely fine. People really want her to come back, or they wanted her to come back. I don't know how these characters work in the new continuity. There's a very slim chance, but maybe someday Sugar will return, and then something terrible will happen to her, so we can put her on the board. Let's hope. Similarly, Sean and Jasmine. Now, initially, my point was going to be that the show enabled Sean's delusions, but there's nothing actually in the show that supports that. And I was going to drag Jasmine down, too, into this category, because now that she's with him, she has to deal with those delusions. But actually, I do think there's a reality out there where Jasmine manages to get Sean to drop the whole zombie act, and then they live happily together, each with $500,000. She even starts to get through to him by the end of the show. So congratulations, Sean and Jasmine. Despite being in every single episode of Cocktail Island, you come out relatively unscathed. They truly were survivors. That's not the name of the show. But real quick, if Sean has seen every zombie movie, do you think he's seen Chris's badminton movie? So let's get into relationship drama. They don't call it total drama for nothing. Sky intended to break up with her boyfriend back home before leaving for the show. But she didn't. And then she met a charming, cute guy that she liked, and even though it was for a challenge, she did end up kissing him. Although the intention was still there, even if it's not partially Dave's fault, if not entirely Dave's fault. She still cheated on her boyfriend on national TV.
It's international, Jeff. Total drama is seen all over the world.
Or sorry, international TV. Even the people in Italy watching the show bootleg style saw it. And that's not just me theorizing to the extreme again. They say that on the show, which means it's true. It means that everyone saw it. She was gonna dump him anyway, but now there's no chance he'll take her back. And now everyone back home is gonna know her as the burning cheater. And to me, that sounds like psychological torment. I'm being very lax with the term torment now. You can tell how hard it was to categorize the Pocketail characters. And wait a minute, Andrew, aren't you forgetting a Pocketail Island character? No. I'm sorry that the last couple characters seemed a little ham-fisted, or I just gave up on them. It's because they were only around for one season, and it's hard to categorize them, because they don't really get endings. But the rest of the characters are OG characters, so I have a lot to say about all of them. Except for Bridget. You could say the same thing that we said about Sky, that she tried to cheat on her man on national TV. Actually, she did international TV. They say that in the song. But he forgave her. Then I was going to go back to the well of well. The last time we canonically saw her, she exploded in Revenge of the Island. But I feel like if she died tragically in an explosion, Jeff would have at least mentioned it on the Ridiculous Race. I didn't watch it, but I know he didn't say that. We could argue maybe she lost her way, like Jeff, but no, she actually owns a couple animal sanctuaries. And that's it. She always liked animals since the beginning, but she was never this hands-on. Like she feels guilty about something. Well, for one, when DJ is injuring animals in World Tour, and we will get to that very shortly, she doesn't seem that concerned. Like she complains about it, yeah, but she doesn't really care about solving the problem as much as DJ does. And on top of that, she's a vegetarian, and the show makes her eat meat, even more meat than the average meat eater would be okay with. Like I eat meat, not as much as I probably should, as you can tell by the width of my arm. And I would find eating dolphin meat and bull testicles as immoral, if not just gross. I don't know what it feels like to be a vegetarian and be forced to eat meat, and I probably never will. But I'm gonna go out on a limb and say it probably feels bad. Psychological damage. She's gonna spend the rest
Oh yeah,
of
that
her
definitely
life trying
counts
to
as
forgive
torture, I
herself,
feel
but
like.
she never will, which is good for the planet, but bad for her brain. Let's put her right next to Jeff. I put her between Jeff and Noah because that's a love triangle waiting to happen. And speaking of curses, the final OG characters before we get to the final category, Beth and DJ. I said earlier that this video is basically just an outlet for a bunch of mini theories I developed upon watching the show again that I didn't think would warrant their own videos, and I gotta say, I think both their curses are bogus. I mean, I think real world curses are bogus too, but this is a cartoon. In season 1, Total Drama Island, Beth takes a curse totem from Boney Island and curses her whole team, and then they lose, and when they find out, they boot her off. A couple things. One, Chris specifically says you will be cursed forever.
If you take anything off the island, you'll be cursed forever.
Which would imply that if Beth was in fact cursed, that she would remain cursed for the rest of her life, even after the contestants ripped up the totem and put him back on the island. There are 2 episodes she is featured in after taking the totem. They are Paintball Deer Hunter and If You Can't Take the Heat. They lose both those challenges, and then Beth is promptly booted off. But I don't buy it. The episode immediately after the one she gets the totem is the episode she finally stands up for herself and escapes Heather's alliance. And they lose because they end up getting into a paint fight with each other. Also, Cody gets mauled by a bear. Then in the next episode, let's be honest, I love him to death, but it's almost entirely Owen's fault. Owen chucks a crate at Trent's head, potentially giving him brain damage, and then eats the team's entire spread. Heather's eyebrows explode off of her head because Lindsay messed up the flambe, and then Lashana locks her in the freezer. None of these things, mind you, have anything to do with Beth. The curse is supposed to make bad things happen to specifically Beth because she stole it, but honestly, Beth is living her best life. She's thriving. As bad things happen to the people around her. I don't doubt that that totem has mystical powers, but I don't think Chris is being honest about how those powers work, because we know that Chris lies.
Oh yeah, that. Yeah, I lied.
So what if, and stick with me here, what if the totem doesn't actually bring bad luck, but instead brings good fortune to the person who stole it by sapping positive energy from those around them, and thus breeding bad luck to those around the person who currently holds it? And if we are to believe it's forever, what if the curse never left her? Because in the next season, Total Drama Action, a season full of misfortune and injuries, who makes it to the very end by flying under the radar? Beth. Nobody questioned it until now, because how would you even explain it? But in half of the ending, she wins $1 million. $1 million that she goes on to lose. Maybe the totem curse doesn't last forever. And again, Chris lies. But what if it lasts only so long? Because action takes place mere days after Island. A world tour is a decent time skip. I can imagine that the curse or the fortune would at least last until the end of the summer. Ever since Beth stole that totem, she has had insane luck. She managed to stand up for herself to a bully, something she could never do prior. She almost and possibly did win $1 million. She met up with a handsome model man who became her committed boyfriend, and again, no one questioned it. But that leads us to the host, Chris McClain. What advantage does he get from lying about the totem? Why would Chris specifically not want any of the contestants to pick up a totem that could potentially bring them good luck and cause misfortune to those around them? Like all the teens on the show constantly. My theory, the big theory of this video, is not even on the board, is that Chris McClain has been stealing the totems from the island and preventing other people from taking them because he's been using them to bring misfortune to those around him, thus upping ratings and increasing his career while also bringing good fortune to himself. That would explain why Boney Island is so close in proximity to the island he decided to have his show on, and why he keeps going back there. And if we are to believe our Beth hypothesis, then we know that the totem can still work even if it's cut up into little bits, which is how it is the last time we see it in Island. So if Chris McClain wanted to sap these totems' power, but discreetly, he could, in theory, hypothetically, crush it up into little bits and put it in some kind of jewelry to keep on his person. Like, say, a mysterious sack he wears around his neck. You guys ever wonder what was in that sack? But remember, the curse
I
does
honestly didn't even know it was
eventually
a
wear
sack.
off, and you will be left the same as you were before the curse or enchantment started. Or will you? Because after action, Beth doesn't just have normal Beth luck again, she has distinctly bad luck. She loses all her winnings after falling over with her friend in France. And then she missed out on winning even more money because she randomly decided to go look for help with Jeff and Trent. She went from a potential season 2 winner to not even being featured in the competition in season 3. What an insane downgrade. Okay, so unless you continue procuring more totems, which we know there are multiple of, you will have terrible luck. You will come crashing down. It's like hard drugs. It may feel good and better for a little, but after a while, you will never be normal again. So Beth is going to physical, because technically it has nothing to do with her mentality. It's just an aura that surrounds her for the rest of her life. And that's all well and good, because that's why I started this video. But real quick, I'd like to get to the bottom of this Chris theory. Chris needs to keep getting these totems regularly to keep himself fresh and prevent him from crashing into bad luck. It's why we keep driving back to Wawanakwa even in action. It's just over there. And I'm sure before flying away from the island, he procured enough totems to last him the entire plane ride, the whole season. But the plane explodes. So then, of course, immediately after that, we return to the island again. But this time, Chris implements a new rule to the game. Whoever finds these McClain invincibility statues that are hidden around the island gets invincibility. And where is this idol hidden in Total Drama All-Stars? Inside Boney Island. But these totems look like Chris, and the original Tiki totem didn't. But to be fair, so does plant, and I really don't want to live in a world where Chris canonically fucked that plant. So technically, I'm going back on what I said. Beth's curse is real. It's just not the curse that the show said it was. However, DJ's curse is entirely bullshit. Devin Joseph is a graceful and confident man that gets significantly less graceful and confident as the show goes on. But he's also very much a mama's boy. In a weird turn of events, he's one of the few contestants whose parents we actually meet, but we still know very little about them, or rather about about her. We see his mother, and we see that those two are very close whenever he's not in the game. And as a fellow raised by women guy, I know it when I see it. But this also means he lacks a strong father figure in his life, and he really wants one. Which explains why in Total Drama Island, despite being notably a really nice guy and becoming friends with him later on in the series, he agrees to and participates in mercilessly bullying Harold. He wants Duncan to think he's cool. He likes listening to him and doing what he says. And it's the same reason he agrees to be in an illegal alliance with Chef in Action. He wouldn't have done that otherwise. He craves that father figure, despite looking for it in the wrong places. In the third episode of Action, he is shown to be very proficient in makeup and baking cookies, to which Chef lashes out at him and wants him to be more of a man. But he
Pink,
feels
orange,
so
pink,
bad due to
orange,
his mama guilt that he decides to quit
pink,
the game,
orange,
which is
pink,
common for him.
orange,
DJ lost
pink,
in 3
orange.
seasons, and he was never voted off in a single one of them. And then in World Tour, DJ believes Alejandro when he tells him that the fish with the emblem on it
Pink,
was
orange,
cursed,
pink.
despite not believing it when Heather says the exact same thing. And side note, it's worth noting that for whatever reason, throughout the entire series, Heather's actually pretty nice to DJ. Like, Cody thinks he's the only one that Heather's been relatively nice to. But she's been mean to him. In the first spooky episode aired in October, she tries to calm DJ down after he runs to the bathroom screaming. And then in the second spooky episode aired in October, she asks DJ if he's okay, which she hasn't to any other character prior or since. And then there's an entire episode in World Tour where Heather keeps fighting to keep DJ in the game. Of course, it's to gain an extra ally and have an alliance to help herself get farther in the game, but there's history there. You want to see a really weird thing I noticed in the first ever episode of Total Drama? Heather walks onto the dock wearing sunglasses, and there are 4 characters that appear in the reflection of those sunglasses. Beth and Lindsay, the girls who went on to become her alliance members and eventually turn on her. Gwen, her notable rival who they've been feuding with for years, and DJ. Heather and DJ have some sort of connection that I only really noticed upon the most recent rewatch. I think it's sweet, and yet DJ does not believe her. He only believes Alejandro, a dominant male figure. And a lot of the curse has to do with DJ's perception, because again, you notice things upon rewatch after having already seen the later seasons. If you didn't know, I don't know how you got this far in the video, but also a lot of the people that watched the Izzy video went on to tell me in the comments that they had never seen Total Drama before but still liked the video, which is confusing to me. If you don't know, in Total Drama World Tour, DJ crumbles a mummy puppy or a puppy mummy and then is cursed to injure animals at every single location they go in every subsequent episode. And it's not on purpose, but he does keep accidentally hurting these animals. It is him that's doing it. But what's interesting is when Alejandro makes him believe that the curse is lifted, the curse is lifted. He doesn't hurt any more animals. But the second Alejandro makes him believe that the curse is real again, animals immediately get hurt. Which kind of implies that it's more of a mind over matter situation. It's not a curse, it's a placebo. But then you go back and watch World Tour again and realize that animals don't start getting hurt until after DJ starts to consider the consequences of crumbling this puppy mummy or this mummy puppy. But Andrew, if animals only get hurt if DJ believes he's cursed, how did he disintegrate the dog in the first place? Well, 1, the dog's not real, and 2, if we are to believe that the curse is real, then who would possibly get the curse if breaking the dog is the way you get the curse, but isn't part of the curse? Sorry, let me explain that a little better. And this is if we are to believe the curse is real, which it isn't. You get the curse by crumbling the dog. And if you want to argue that how could he have known and hurt that animal if he didn't know about the curse yet? But you need to crumble the dog to get the curse, so anyone who touched it would have broken it. It has nothing to do with the curse. You get the curse after touching it. And 3, the big piece of evidence, this isn't the first time this has happened, because again, when you rewatch the series knowing where the characters will end up, you begin to notice some things. Because the same bad luck resulting in him accidentally hurting animals also happens in season 1, where he launches Bunny, his pet bunny, into the air. And then in Action...
Oh no, don't expect me to. What if the trailer slips and rolls back down the hill and possibly hurts someone? What then?
That's really specific. Is that a regular occurrence for you? So it's my belief that on top of this, DJ's gracefulness is tied to his self-worth. When he feels down on himself or stressed, he becomes a bumbling oaf. He's a teenage ballet person, a ballet dancer, so that means he's got to be pretty good at it, or at least a little okay. But when we see him in the season 1 talent show, he sucks at it. In general, the longer the show goes on, the Most of the animal injuries come from him being clumsy more than unlucky. The show Total Drama has made Devin Joseph doubt himself so much that he becomes literally and figuratively unstable. And again, when he believes he's cursed, animals get hurt. And then he leaves the show still believing the curse. And we never see DJ resolve this or grapple with this. Every day going forward, DJ is going to struggle with his personal ability to do anything. And also, you know, animals are going to be at a very high risk of being around this guy, which will probably weigh on him mentally as well. We see how distressed he is in World Tour. If we are to believe the curse is real, then he goes in physical with Beth. But if we are to believe it isn't real and it's a placebo and it's all about doubting himself, we put him in therapy. And with that, we're down to our final 8 contestants. We're all going into the physical deformities pile. Some have had worse deformities than others, and others didn't stay forever. And despite their physical damages healing, they are all resorted to the greatest punishment and embarrassment known to the Total Drama universe. Every Star Wars story suffers a character losing a hand. Every Joss Whedon story has a nerd falling into a hot woman's bazongas or boobies. They all suffer a great loss. Some stories have loss take the shape of a loved one, an opportunity, that feeling of home we all desire. But Total Drama charts loss differently. And that's why our final 8 contestants, Heather, Stacy, Lightning, Ezekiel, Alejandro, Dave, Dakota, and Sierra, they are all here put in the same category together. Sure, Alejandro was burned alive and shoved into a robot for a year. Sure, Dakota becomes this mutated freak giant and is stuck like that for the rest of her life. Sure, Ezekiel is resorted to a feral freak monster creature. But the main big loss that all these characters, all 8 of them suffer, the thing that binds them together, the worst loss in Total Drama history, is they all lose their hair. It all happens on a popular show, on a public forum, potentially in front of millions of people. And you may think that doesn't sound bad, and that some of these characters actually suffered worse fates that are physical, permanent deformities. But in Total Drama world, this is the worst thing that could ever happen. Do you know
The Muffin
what that's
Man?
like? What that feels like? Truly, do you know? Have you ever experienced that? Having the one thing about you that everyone mentions, that everyone comments on, that everyone constantly talks about. Your defining
Oh, this is the
features,
episode
not
where
the
this is the
content
video
of
where
your
he shaves
person,
his head,
or the
isn't it?
words you say, or the way you say them, or the things you feel. It's that physical thing. The one physical thing that people always point out, always compliment or insult or say it's distracting, always the same thing. It's that one thing. That's the content of your character. Imagine losing that one thing. The one thing that makes you your own person, that makes you stand out. That's such an integral part of your identity that people have gotten used to. That thing, your hair, that becomes an extension, literally invisible, of yourself. Do you know what it's like to go bald in front of potentially millions of people in a public forum, in front of all those viewers? Could you possibly know what that feels like? I think I get it now. It's a very big commitment for a couple-second bit. But I'm an erratic guy. Sometimes you wake up in the middle of the night, the sweatiest you've ever been, and decide you need to shave your head or else you're going to stop breathing.
Gotcha. Bimo, how do I look?
Like the devil.
So,
I was literally gonna
all
make that
that,
joke.
truthfully, I have wasted a whole lot of time, and under any other circumstance, 100% of this video would have been about Heather. She's my favorite character, and I love redemption arcs, but I'm not
Who's
even
my
sure
favorite? I
that's
think
what she
Lashana
goes.
was
It's
my
more
favorite
like a
character.
greater villain comes along, so she joins the heroes to fight them Ice King, Vegeta, and Team Rocket style. I won't delve too deep into Heather's psyche, but I will say that she cares a lot about her looks. She believes that they are all she's got, and we do find out later that she isn't even popular. She's just hot. In the first challenge of the show, she gets on Lashana's ass about being big, among other things I choose to forget. And then Harold says this to her in Drama Island.
I don't like being mean all the time. It's kind of become this habit of mine. Do you think that it's fun your parents are divorced? You were really fat actually once.
And she could be playing him because we know she's an expert crocodile tears. She fake cries in Island to manipulate Trent, and then fake cries to Alejandro to steal the win out from under him in World Tour, and attempts to do it on Lightning in Revenge of the Island, but he's too dumb to care. Speaking of which, Lightning falls into the same group because despite not being bald, his hair is permanently changed white after he's struck by lightning.
Yeah, but that's also cool.
About electricity in the body, but I feel like this is going to cause some complications later in life. Anyway, what Harold says actually cuts Heather deep. Can you tell that I did this myself? Like just now. And later we see in her video message from home that her parents aren't divorced. They're actually celebrating that she's gone. Unless they got divorced because of her, and her leaving for the show revitalized their relationship, and that spark. So they got undivorced all because she was gone, which is cartoonishly cruel even for this show. So let's assume she was fat in high school. This is actually a common theory I heard alongside the Izzy theory. I don't know if they were created by the theorizer or just like popularized by him, but check him out. He makes good stuff, mostly about penguins in Madagascar, which was my blind spot. I clearly didn't talk enough about this character in my review. But the theory states in the phobia factor show. States in the phobia factor challenge, we never actually see Heather state what her fear is, and then later on in the challenge we see that fear represented by a sumo wrestler. And she didn't conquer her fear. The only reason she gets a point is because she curled up into the fetal position into a ball, and the sumo dude just tripped over her. I don't know why that counts. And what are sumo wrestlers? Fat. And then in the Celebrity Manhunt special, there's a controversy when Gwen points out her 3-ounce weight gain. And I know it's a parody of how the press actually covers teenage drama in the real world, but this is what I'm talking about. Gwen was never like a super nice person, and it definitely did not help Heather. In the first challenge of the show, she refuses to get her hair wet, and then in the cooking challenge, we're coming back to that one a lot of people get injured. She gets the maddest she's gotten thus far because she burns off her eyebrows, or rather she explodes off her eyebrows. And then in her elimination, the episode where the final 3 contestants have to do dares made up by the previous failed contestants, she lands on Lindsay, whose dare is to have their head shaped by Chef, because remember, in Phobia Factor, her greatest fear.
Bad haircuts. Oh, okay. I changed mine. That's so much scarier than a minefield.
So then Heather does get a bad haircut and attempts to hide it with wigs for a long time after that. But in action, she starts to lose it a little bit as her obsession with hair makes her snap. And then when she leaves action after becoming friends with Lashana, she comments on her hair, but that's just kind of how their friendship works, despite losing it. In World Tour, she finally starts to get her hair back, but is so used to people finding her repulsive now that she's caught off guard that Alejandro's attracted to her. A running joke in World Tour is how disgusting it is that Alejandro may potentially find Heather attractive, despite in the first season her most defining feature being that she can manipulate people by being hot and smart. She does it to Duncan, and he's notably one of the best players in the game. And it's something season 1 Heather would scoff at, like, of course he likes me, look at me. I lied about all the bald baddies being in the physical category because her hair does come back later, and she's fine, but she is mentally irreparably damaged because of this. She has a reputation now because of total drama. All she needs is some friends. Everyone has an evil character they can excuse. Most people choose murderers. I choose Heather from Total Drama and the cast of Always Sunny. Speaking of Heather's friends, we know how much the loss of hair has affected her because every choice she makes to help people in World Tour is to further her goal of winning. Yeah, she defeats Alejandro and saves the day and helped out Cody and was nice to DJ, but in the end of the day, she won the money. She did all that to win the money. Likewise, Cody thinks that Heather is nice to him because she's just being nice, but she just wants to win the money. I don't think she actually cares that much about him. The only character that Heather is nice to in the entirety of World Tour that has nothing to do with furthering her role in the game is Sierra. Specifically after she exploded and then lost all her hair. Sierra's already eliminated by this point. She has no in-game reason to help her. She's not building an alliance. She's out of the game. She helps her because she knows what it's like to be bald on international TV. That experience stuck with her. And if it made Heather nice, then it must be pretty powerful. Which is now going to stick us with Sierra, and I know I put her in the bald group, mostly just to group them all together, but in reality it has very little effect on her, and she is shown as okay later, but they put a mentally unstable individual on a TV show that enables her behavior. Sierra is just like every other obsessive fangirl who believes her and Cody are meant to be together forever. And that was behind a computer. And then she gets to meet him it becomes a problem. Because I know statistically, I want to see how much that bar goes down now that I've lost my hair. Some of you guys were obsessed fangirls writing fan fiction about One Direction kidnapping you. But what happened to you during your teenagers? You grew up. You grew out of it. Maybe you're still a fan of their work, but you're not as obsessed as you were when you were a preteen. But Sierra didn't get an opportunity to grow. So much so that when she meets a boy she's compatible with and likes hanging out with and gets along with in a later season, she can only contextualize her feelings through the lens of Cody.
I forgot how much I like oil pastels. This one looks good too.
I hate it here. She's only able to process affection through the lens of the Cody obsession. It's unhealthy is what it is. There is a world where Sierra eventually got over it and then had a normal geeky relationship with Cameron. Like they hit it off. But her perception of life and how it works has been warped by this show. And also, she lost all her hair on the show. Psychology. Not only are some of our bald baddies split in categories of physical and psychological, but they're also split into categories on whether they stayed bald or whether we saw them with hair later. Dave is one of the normal baddies who loses his hair the last time we see him, and also loses his mind. I'm surprised his hair even lasted this long, considering how scared of germs he is. The heartbreak he suffered on the show and being pushed by Chris rendered him an evil, bald, maniacal maniac with a little taste for blood. Despite only seeing the season one time before doing this video, I knew this happened because people won't shut up about it, but I didn't remember how the season actually ended, and then I rewatched it for this video. If we're to assume that Beardo died while fighting the elements because he was launched somewhere near the island, then I got bad news for Dave fans. In the end, the finalists, Jasmine and Chris, all fly away from the island and leave Dave behind while the island is malfunctioning. Maybe they go back for him, maybe they don't. But maybe they go back for him and it takes them too long and it's too late for Dave. I'm just saying, if you lined up all the Pocketel characters and asked me to pick two who would die in the wilderness, it would be Beardo and Dave. Before we talk about permanent disfigurements, let's talk about the final bald boy we see bounce back with hair, Alejandro. Do I even need to explain this one? He got burnt by a volcano and then was put in a stinky robot suit. In what is a surprising Revenge of the Sith reference, because most of the time when you see a Star Wars reference in something, it's either, ooh, I am your father, or I love you, I know. At least Fairly Odd Parents reference Jar Jar. The whole finale is a bunch of references put together, but we'll get to that in a second. But we do later see Alejandro get out of the suit where he's not burnt, not bald, and his legs are really like a day. So physically, he's okay. But he spent a year in that stinky robot suit. A year in which he did not have opposable thumbs and had no contact with anyone. Heather chastises him for not texting. But what about his family? Did they think he was dead? If that's the case, then Jose doesn't look too shaken up to see him, unless he wanted him to die. As much as I would like to go in depth about Alejandro's inferiority complex due to his older brother, I just did. Pretty easy to explain, actually. I don't need a whole paragraph for that. I just told you. But he was put in what is technically a form of solitary confinement, where he could not even speak. Despite being able to speak when he was first put in the robot, I guess Chris took that ability away. Evil, and it messed with him like it would anything. And now he's able to sleep when he's all bundled up, like me. But I think mine has more to do with brain stuff than it does being shoved in a giant robot for a year. Also, I said giant robot. It's actually, all things considered, not that big. Like big enough to hold a human? Barely. Alejandro may seem on top of his game in All Stars and ends off with a happy relationship with Heather. And notice I didn't say healthy, but inside, underneath it all, is a broken man. I just want to say real quick, I know people don't like All Stars, but aside from Scourtney, Alejandro eliminating Heather and getting revenge is like one of my favorite moments. It's really cool. But you know what isn't cool? Alejandro, mental issues. Why did I say it like that? Dakota and Stacy. Their baldness actually has more in common than you think. Dakota went bald and then was mutated and cursed to a life of being a giant, grammarless mutant monster, but we've covered this. Stacy doesn't just survive an explosion or get her head shaved. We see the hair fall out of her head after she holds a toxic waste-riddled marshmallow. I really like Revenge of the Island because despite being short, every character serves an important purpose. They have their own role. Stacy's role is to teach people to not grab the toxic marshmallow anymore, ever, after this. does. I'm not a hair loss or radiation expert, but I'm pretty sure if all of your hair falls out at once immediately after holding something radiated that bad, best case scenario, you will be bald forever. Worst case scenario, you are going to die. But I don't want to add Stacy to our already 2-character obituary, so let's stay on the safe side and say that she's just going to be bald for the rest of her life and have complications probably.
Here lies Princess Beautiful. She was so beautiful, but died of baldness?
Which leads us to our final bald man, final character on this list, and the character I said I didn't want to talk about last time, and yet here we are. Ezekiel, the most requested camper for me to talk about, despite saying that I would not do that. I guess it worked because here we are. I could go in depth into his home life, but like Alejandro, it's relatively simple. He lacked social skills because he was homeschooled and got bad advice from his folks. He tried to rectify this in drama by working with girls and agreeing not to be sexist anymore. And he tried to forge his own career during Celebrity Manhunt. Although he was a messed up kid, he had the potential to become someone. Total Drama World Tour. He was thrown out of a moving plane multiple times. He was toyed with by the host. He held on to the outside of the plane while it was flying, and that plane's already a death trap even inside. Lived in the cargo and slept in the landing gear. He lived with animals and ate rats and became more and more feral as the only people he could share his company with weren't people. They were animals and creatures. And maybe either way it has something to do with his homeschooling. Maybe a better man would have stayed sane. Maybe a lesser man would have died under these conditions. All we know is Ezekiel survived, but at what cost? He became feral. So feral that he began walking around on all fours and forgot every earthly desire beyond getting that briefcase with the $1 million. And that would be a downfall as he went Gollum style. See, I told you there'd be more references. As he finally gets the briefcase full of money, but sunk into the volcano. Now, lava works differently in Total Drama than it does in real life. It doesn't feel as though every inch of your skin is touching a hot stove. You fall for another second towards the lava, and now the air temperature has doubled to 410 degrees. At this point, any clothes you were wearing made of cotton would ignite into flames. Your hair would probably do the same. It's kind of more like Mario, where he jumps up and grabs his butt and goes, ooh, ow, ooh, ow, and it can damage you, like it damaged Alejandro for the time being. But Ezekiel's lucky because it shot him out of the volcano before he could sustain any damage. Any more damage. And at this point, Ezekiel has the capability to go home, get the proper help he needs, and reacclimate to society. But he doesn't. We don't know how big of a gap of time between World Tour and Revenge of the Island there is, but based off Heather and Sierra's hair length, I'd say a little under over a year, just like it aired in real life. Ezekiel is on the boat with the rest of the kids Chris ruined, and Eva. Ezekiel had the chance to become a real person again, but he was drawn back by the thing that turned him feral in the first place. The money. You would think that cutting my hair would mean I would be touching it less, but now I'm just going like this over and over. He wanted to win.
Yeah, when I cut my hair short, I kept touching it too.
Other campers that he had another chance to do that until it was ripped away by Chris. After the boat passes the island, like Owen, he does manage to get back to the island, probably by swimming, but he ends up in an abandoned mine. The same mine that turned Dakota into a monster. If Ezekiel was just a feral human before, now he's crossed the point of no return, and he's more monster than man. In All-Stars, we see him again, but this time he spits acid. His exposure to toxic waste made him a Batman villain. Do I even need to explain this anymore? At the beginning, I kind of hyped up the both category like it would be popular. And there's a lot of characters here that could technically go in both, but really it's just for Ezekiel and the other two. So congratulations, Ezekiel, for being the contestant the most physically and psychologically fucked up. At least Dakota can talk. And that was how Total Drama ruined people. And now I'm free, and I don't have to make another Total Drama video.
You only made like 2.
I'm passing the torch. I don't want to be Total Drama guy anymore. I never wanted to be Total Drama guy. Switchy's the Total Drama guy now. Not again. Quite frankly, I didn't know what this video was going to be for a long time. I spent a couple months writing the beginning of a character analysis before struggling and not deciding which character I wanted to talk about. And once I heard about the new season dropping, I knew I had to talk about one. That's a true story. In the middle of writing this, it just dropped randomly. And they would have been a part of this video if they didn't reboot the series, which, to be fair, I should have expected. For anyone who wants to know my opinions, it takes a while to get good But to be fair, a lot of total drama seasons take a while to get good. I'm saying like post-merger is when it's at its best. I like Wayne and Raj more than I thought I would. I thought they would be too gimmicky. And overall, I'm excited about the future. I want them to explore more stuff with these characters, and I want them to do it somewhere that isn't an island. I mean, I knew when it was announced that I would be excited, new cast or not. It just got announced a while ago, and then I happened to make a total drama video that blew up in the meantime. And from a writing sense, I'm finishing this video up way before it comes
I'm on
out, and
2%.
I'm filming this again before it comes out, because that's how videos work. Maybe a second season will be announced
Last
while
shot.
I'm working on this before it goes up. I never thought I'd have to
Bye.
worry about a total drama video.